What if one day you woke up and couldn't remember who you were? After a terrible accident, Eva started each morning from scratch, listening to someone else's version of her life. But one day, everything changed. A piece of evidence emerged, proof that everything she thought she knew might be a lie. Who was the real enemy? And did she have the strength to reclaim what she had lost? Every night, the same dream haunted Eva like an uninvited guest, a broken record replaying the same eerie tune, each time laced with a new dose of anxiety. First came the void, a vast emptiness stretching before her. A white mist drifted over the ground, concealing something unknown. She stood motionless, the cold seeping into her bare feet. Her heart pounded, not from fear, but from a strange premonition, as if something vital awaited her within that fog. Then, from a distance, a small figure emerged, a boy. His movements were uneven, as though he was running on unstable ground. His voice was faint, barely cutting through the dense air. She could see his lips moving, shouting something, but the words were stolen by the wind. "Who are you?" She wanted to ask, but her tongue felt paralyzed. She reached out to him, but the fog thickened, swallowing his face until it became nothing more than a blur. And then, deafening, like a thunderclap splitting the sky, he was gone. Each time, Eva jolted awake in a cold sweat, her breath rapid, her heart hammering against her ribs as if trying to escape its cage. The room around her was unfamiliar, stark in its emptiness. For the first few seconds after waking, the world felt terrifyingly void, like scraps of consciousness torn apart and scattered. Who am I? Where am I? Why does that boy chase me in my dreams? Eva, you're fine. You're home. Her eyes flickered toward the voice. A man stood in the doorway, his warm smile meant to reassure her. He was tall, his hair neatly styled, his gaze soft, calm, even. But instead of soothing her, his presence only deepened her unease. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The man approached, sitting on the edge of the bed with practiced ease, as if this was part of a routine. "I'm Leo, your husband." The words landed like a discordant note, jarring and out of place within the melody of her thoughts. "You're safe, Eva. Everything is okay," he continued, his voice smooth, like water undisturbed by wind. She stared at him, feeling like a doll someone was desperately trying to bring back to life. "Why don't I remember anything about the accident?" "You have a memory condition," Leo explained patiently. "You forget what happened the day before, so every morning, I help you remember who you are. It's only temporary. The doctor says you'll recover." His words were convincing, too convincing. Yet deep within her, like the distant echo of an approaching storm, something whispered that this wasn't right. Eva looked around. The room was too perfect, light-colored walls, solid wood furniture, plush carpet. It resembled a scene from a high-end catalog. But nothing in it felt like hers. Not a single photograph. Why weren't there any pictures? Leo smiled, but for a fleeting second, something flickered in his eyes, something unreadable, something she didn't trust. "Disturbing dreams, memory gaps, it's all just part of the process," he said. Eva nodded, not in agreement, but because she didn't know what else to do. When Leo left the room, silence enveloped her. Her heart pounded again. Everything about this was too smooth, too controlled, too perfect. She closed her eyes, hoping for answers, but instead, the vision of the boy returned, standing in the distance, his lips moving, his words lost in the fog. She felt like a ghost trapped inside her own body. Her gaze fell on the plate of breakfast Leo had set before her, but the food stirred no appetite. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. Each slice of toast was cut with almost mechanical precision, the jam spread so evenly it felt surreal. Everything was too perfect, too controlled. The rest of the morning unfolded like all the ones before, yet Eva knew that each day was the first page of a book she couldn't remember. "You have an appointment with Dr. Romanova today," Leo said, taking a sip of his coffee. Eva looked up, searching his face. The name rang a bell, but nothing more. "Who is she?" she asked cautiously. "Your psychiatrist," Leo explained with his usual patience. "She's been helping you with your memory for a long time. It's part of your therapy." His voice was so steady, so reassuring, that Eva almost believed him. And yet, deep inside, something felt misaligned, like a broken cog grinding in the back of her mind. "She's helping me remember," she pressed, studying him closely, hoping to catch the smallest trace of a lie. There was a brief pause before he answered, his voice softening, almost sympathetic. "She's working on a way to help you regain your memory. Recovering from trauma is difficult, but she's guiding you through it, helping you accept your situation." Eva thought about his words. Something about them felt off. She didn't want to accept this emptiness inside her. She wanted to remember. I'll take you to her after lunch, Leo added. Eva didn't reply. Her gaze drifted to the window. The garden outside was immaculately kept, too perfect, like something from a magazine. Yet, an unsettling feeling gnawed at her. Why do I feel like I'm missing something? She murmured. Leo froze for just a second. Then, setting his cup down, he looked at her with something unreadable in his expression. You're not missing anything, he said gently. It's just your subconscious. After the accident, your brain created gaps, and now it's trying to fill them. Eva stared at him, turning his words over in her mind. It all sounded so reasonable. Too reasonable. But why was the unease inside her growing? You were asking about your dreams, Leo continued, watching her closely. Eva tensed. They're just projections, he assured her. Your memory trying to make sense of the blanks. Don't take them seriously. But they feel so real, she whispered, more to herself than to him. Leo stepped closer, placing a warm hand on her shoulder. Yet, despite his touch, a chill spread through her. Trust me, Eva. Everything is fine. She nodded, but not because she believed him. When Leo left the room, Eva's eyes darted around, scanning for something, anything, that might tell her who she was. But there was nothing. No photographs, no personal belongings, no hint of a past life. Why is there nothing about me? She stepped into the hallway. The polished wooden floors reflected her silhouette, and the walls were eerily bare. Moving slowly, she felt as if she might wake something lurking in the shadows. The living room was pristine, light-colored sofas, a coffee table, neatly stacked books. Too perfect. She opened another door and found herself in the study. A desk, a chair, a neatly arranged stack of papers, a computer. Everything in its place. But once again, nothing that spoke of her. Then she noticed a staircase leading downward into a part of the house that seemed darker. A shiver ran through her as she descended, her fingers trailing along the railing. At the end of the hallway stood a door, its surface duller than the rest, its handle rougher. Her heartbeat quickened. Something important is behind this door. She reached out, fingers closing around the cold metal handle. She tried to turn it, but it wouldn't budge. Again, she pushed. Nothing. Eva leaned in, pressing her ear against the wood, straining to hear something. Anything. But the silence was absolute, as if there was nothing there at all. Then, behind her, Leo's voice cut through the stillness. She shuddered as she pulled her hand away, her wife's silhouette illuminated by the soft glow from the living room. His presence was imposing, his voice calm, yet there was something in his eyes, something unreadable. What are you doing here? Eva turned around, feeling like a schoolgirl caught sneaking into an office that wasn't hers. She hesitated for a moment before answering, trying to sound indifferent. But beneath her composed exterior, she felt exposed. Leo stood right in front of her, but his focus wasn't on the door, it was solely on her. I was just about to remind you that it's time to see Dr. Romanova, he said, his voice warm yet laced with an imperceptible tension. She's expecting us in half an hour. Eva nodded, avoiding his gaze. All right. He extended his hand to her, but she didn't take it. Instead, she stepped aside, allowing him to pass. Leo studied her face for a moment before speaking again. I know this is difficult for you. The furniture, the soft armchairs, everything in the office exuded warmth and comfort, yet Eva felt no peace. Remembering was difficult. Sometimes, it felt impossible. At moments like these, she wished she could disappear. Dr. Romanova looked up from the papers on her desk and smiled. Her gaze was sharp yet kind, devoid of judgment, only patience and quiet reassurance. She understood how hard this was for Eva and always spoke gently, never pressuring her. Hello, Eva. How are you feeling? She asked, motioning for her to take a seat. Eva hesitated before sitting down. The air in the room felt heavier with every passing second. Her eyes wandered over the rows of books and neatly stacked folders on the shelves. Dr. Romanova, sensing her reluctance, continued. I think we should talk about your journal, Eva. Do you remember that I asked you to keep one to help restore your memory? Eva frowned. No, she admitted. She couldn't recall ever writing in a journal. The idea of it felt distant, like a shadow vanishing in daylight. I'm not sure, she added quietly, doubt creeping into her voice. I tried, but it's like everything just disappears. I don't remember what I wrote. I don't even remember where it is. When I woke up this morning, I couldn't recall anything from the night before. Fragments of images drifted through her mind, but none of them felt real, none of them felt like hers. Dr. Romanova observed her carefully, her expression calm and patient, as if she had long accepted that progress came in small, uncertain steps. That's normal, she said gently, not allowing Eva to sink into guilt. Recovering lost memories isn't an instant process. But the journal is in your mind, Eva. What you felt as you wrote, even if the words seem unclear now, might hold the key to something important. Eva's hands clenched in her lap as another image flashed through her thoughts, the boy who reached for her through the fog in her dreams. His lips moved, forming words, but they were distorted, lost in the echoing emptiness of an abandoned house. I can't remember, she murmured, her voice cold and distant. Dr. Romanova leaned forward slightly. Even the smallest fragments can be valuable, she reassured her. We'll work with whatever comes back to you. You may not recall everything immediately, but if you write down even brief moments each day, the pieces will start to form a clearer picture. At first, they might seem insignificant, but over time, they could reveal the truth. Eva wasn't sure she believed her. The doctor's words were logical, comforting even, but uncertainty gnawed at her. The nightmares, the anxiety, the nagging feeling that something was being kept from her, it was all growing stronger. Dr. Romanova stood, walked over to a shelf, and retrieved a small notebook. She placed it in front of Eva. It was plain, unadorned, yet something about it felt significant. Start small, she encouraged. Write whatever comes to mind, just a few words, thoughts, images. See what surfaces. I believe it will help you. Eva stared at the notebook. Its blank pages were intimidating, stretching before her like an unfamiliar world, an abyss where she could lose herself. Her fingers trembled as she hesitantly opened the first page, but she didn't feel ready to write. And if I don't know what to write, she asked softly, almost afraid of the answer. Dr. Romanova smiled, her gaze filled with genuine interest. It doesn't matter, she said. Just start. This isn't just about remembering, it's about finding your way back to yourself. To feel what truly matters, you must stop overthinking. Don't worry about what's right or wrong, just let it flow. Eva stared at the notebook again, feeling her mind resist. But deep down, she knew this was necessary. Maybe, within these pages, she would find the missing fragments that could bring her back to herself. Slowly, her hand reached for a pen, and on the first page, she wrote a single word, fog. Dr. Romanova smiled, recognizing the small but significant step. This is the beginning, Eva. Keep this notebook by your bedside so that when you wake up, you can immediately read and reflect on your thoughts from the day before. Eva carefully got into the car, holding the thin leather-bound journal that Dr. Romanova had given her. The pristine pages felt almost intimidating, as if they held too much weight. She hoped they would unlock her past, yet, the longer she looked at them, the more anxious she became. Leo settled into the driver's seat, stealing a quick glance at the journal in her hands. His usually composed expression flickered with something else, irritation. She gave you that, huh? His voice was laced with restrained skepticism. His eyes stayed on the road, but his tone carried a sharp edge. Do you really think this will help? Taking notes, what difference does that make? You lose your memory every night. Whatever you write down today will be as foreign to you tomorrow as those blank pages are now. Eva tensed, her fingers tightening around the journal as his words cut through her like a cold wind. Dr. Romanova thinks it's important, she said quietly. Leo sighed, as if trying to hold back further criticism. She told you what you wanted to hear. His voice hardened. I know better. Your memory won't come back because of words on a page. Eva was silent for a moment before she finally spoke. Where's my first diary? Leo's hands briefly stiffened on the steering wheel. He turned to look at her, his expression unreadable, as if she had said something absurd. Dr. Romanova said she gave me a journal 2 weeks ago, Eva explained, keeping her eyes on him. She expected me to bring it today. Leo turned back to the road, his jaw visibly tightening. Eva, he said, his tone forced into patience, you must have misunderstood her. You never had a diary before today. But something in his voice unsettled her. She told me I should have started writing earlier, Eva pressed, a strange feeling creeping over her. So why don't I remember it? And where is it now? Leo gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles turning white. You're confused, he said, not meeting her gaze. It's just the effects of your trauma. That's why I'm here, to help you. Eva said nothing, but her thoughts churned like storm clouds. Something didn't add up. Leo's words, his reactions, they felt too rigid, too rehearsed. Lowering her gaze to the notebook in her hands, she traced a finger over the smooth cover. If that first diary really existed, why was it missing? And why was Leo so adamant that it never existed at all? The car rolled to a stop in front of the house. Leo cut the engine. Let's just forget about it, Eva, he said, staring straight ahead, avoiding her eyes. Just try to relax. Everything will work out. Eva remained silent. Something inside her stirred, a creeping certainty that the truth was much closer than it seemed, hidden beneath the thick, suffocating fog. After their conversation in the car, something shifted within her, like a small pebble triggering an avalanche of doubt. Leo's confidence had been unwavering, yet his evasiveness gnawed at her. Why had he reacted so strongly to the mention of the diary? And why did she feel that behind that door, buried beneath layers of forgotten memories, lay the answer she was searching for? Her thoughts swirled, thick as the fog clouding her mind, as her heartbeat quickened with each step toward the unknown. She tried to concentrate, but her thoughts kept returning to one thing: what secret lay behind that door? Just then, Leo's phone rang in the hallway. She heard him answer, his tone friendly, slightly animated. A couple of minutes later, he entered the room, still holding the phone. "That was Victor," he said. "He has a new apartment and needs help with something. I'll be gone for a while, an hour at most. You'll be fine on your own." Eva nodded, trying to appear calm, though a storm of emotions raged inside her. She responded as if indifferent, masking her true thoughts. Leo stepped into the hallway to get dressed. The door slammed shut behind him, leaving an eerie silence in its wake. For a moment, she stood still, listening to his footsteps fading outside the window. Her heart pounded with an almost premonitory urgency. She knew what she was about to do. Her gaze locked onto the basement door. She felt a near physical pull toward it, a certainty that behind it lay something crucial, something that could finally make sense of the puzzle surrounding her. But she needed a key. Leo was a man who liked control. That meant the key would be well hidden. She searched the house meticulously, checking drawers, shelves, closets, nothing. A growing sense of frustration clawed at her until her eyes landed on the bathroom. Moving as if guided by instinct, she stepped inside and began searching: the medicine cabinet, the towel shelves, even the laundry basket. Still, no key. Sighing, she slumped onto the edge of the tub. That's when her gaze fell upon the base of the toilet, where the flush pipe connected. Something was taped beneath it. Leaning in closer, she saw a strip of black adhesive securing a small object. Her pulse quickened. Hands trembling, she peeled away the tape, revealing a small metal key. Why was it hidden here? What was it meant to unlock? Her mind spun with unsettling possibilities. If Leo had gone to such lengths to conceal it, then he was keeping something from her, something she wasn't supposed to know. Clutching the key tightly, she moved soundlessly into the hallway. Her eyes fixed once more on the basement door. With a deep breath, she approached, her excitement laced with fear. Slowly, she inserted the key into the lock and turned it. A soft click echoed in the silence. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into the dimness. Eva hesitated on the threshold. A damp, cold scent wafted up from below. The stairs stretched downward, disappearing into shadows that seemed to swallow all light. Gripping the key as though it were her only anchor, she took the first step. The wooden planks groaned beneath her weight, each sound magnified in the silence. A single dim bulb swung from the ceiling, casting a pale glow over the basement. The space was largely empty, save for a few scattered boxes and old furniture draped in dust-covered sheets. But something in the far corner drew her attention immediately. A single box sat apart from the rest, its lid shut tightly. Unlike the others, it wasn't coated in dust. Fear prickled her skin, but curiosity propelled her forward. She knelt before it, her breath catching. The air around her felt suspended, as if the very room held its breath. With cautious hands, she lifted the lid. Inside, resting at the very top, lay an object she instantly recognized: a diary. The same one Dr. Romanova had spoken of. For a moment, Eva sat frozen, as though time itself had stilled. Then, carefully, she reached for the journal, her fingers brushing against its worn cover. It felt like touching a fragment of a past she could not recall. Holding her breath, she flipped it open. The handwriting was undeniably hers, yet the words were unfamiliar, as if written by a stranger. Her eyes scanned the first entry. January 12th. Dr. Romanova says the diary will help. The diary would help. Today, I had that dream again. The boy with the blue eyes, he's Reno. But who is he? And why does he keep appearing in my dreams? Leo insists the diary is a waste of time. Why is he so certain? He seems almost determined to make me stop writing. But why? January 15th. I found something strange on his desk today. A photograph. I don't know who's in it, but it's not him. Why can't I remember? Entry after entry, line after line, Eva felt her mind filling with fragmented memories that refused to form a coherent picture. Her fingers trembled as she turned the pages. Then, at the very end of the diary, she saw an entry written in bold letters. Don't trust Leo. He's hiding something. The words, penned in her own handwriting, struck her like a gust of icy wind. Her heart froze, then began pounding frantically. Why had she written this? What had she discovered that had compelled her to warn herself? She stood there, paralyzed, gripping the diary tightly. Then, with a deep breath, she snapped it shut and placed it back where she had found it. The answers were closer than she had ever imagined, but to uncover them, she would have to be careful, very careful. The warning echoed in her mind like a relentless whisper. Don't trust Leo. He's hiding something. Shaking off the chill that had settled over her, Eva let her gaze sweep across the basement, filled with forgotten relics, dust-covered furniture, old boxes, remnants of another time. But then, just beneath the stairs, where the shadows tangled with dust, something caught her eye. A glint. She crouched down and reached for it, her fingers brushing against a delicate gold chain. As she pulled, she realized it was attached to something, wedged between the wooden post of the staircase and the wall. With effort, she yanked it free. A purse. It was old, covered in layers of grime and dust, as if it had been abandoned for years. With careful hands, Eva wiped the dirt from its lock and pried it open. There wasn't much inside, but what she found made her blood run cold. A photograph slipped from the purse and fluttered to the floor. Her breath caught. It was him. The boy from her dreams. He looked no older than 4, his striking blue eyes staring straight into the camera. And beside him, her own smiling face, holding his tiny hand. Eva's hand shook. Who was he? Why did she see him in the snow? Desperate for more answers, she reached into the bag again. Her fingers brushed against something hard, hidden within the torn lining. She carefully extracted a small SIM card. Heart pounding, Eva slipped it into her jeans pocket, moving quickly, quietly. Leo must never find out. She placed everything else, the wallet, the photograph, the receipts, back into the purse, restoring it exactly as she had found it. Then, just as carefully, she slid the purse back under the stairs. Time was running out. Leo would return any moment. Eva climbed the stairs, clutching the key tightly, her mind racing with unanswered questions. Whose purse was this? Why was it hidden? And who was that boy? After locking the cellar door, she hurried to return the key to its place, pressing it back under the toilet bowl, securing it once more with the black sticky tape. She wiped her hands clean of dust, then took a moment to check her reflection in the mirror. Her face showed traces of tension, but she smoothed them away. She had to appear composed. Just then, the front door opened. Footsteps echoed through the hallway. Leo was back. Eva inhaled sharply, turning just as he stepped into the room. Everything all right? He asked, removing his jacket. Yes, she replied, forcing a calm, even tone. Leo studied her briefly, then nodded and walked into the living room. Eva followed, her pulse steady, her expression unreadable. But in her jeans pocket, she clutched the SIM card tightly. This was her chance to uncover the truth, and she wasn't about to let it slip away. In the kitchen, Leo rummaged through the drawers, checked his ID, and returned to his laptop multiple times, taking notes. Eva watched him from the corner of her eye, sitting on the couch with her phone in hand, feigning indifference. But inside, she was seething. The SIM card in her pocket felt like a lead weight, pulling her toward the truth. This was her opportunity, her right, to find out what was real. Abruptly, she rose and went to her bedroom. Closing the door behind her, Eva sat on the bed and pulled out the SIM card. Her fingers trembled as she removed her own card and inserted the one she had found. The phone shut off for a moment, then restarted with a message flashing on the screen. New SIM card activated. Seconds dragged on like hours. Then, suddenly, the phone vibrated. A flood of messages appeared. Eva froze. The screen filled with unread texts, all from the same number, signed simply Dimitri. She hesitated before opening the first message. Eva, where are you? Seraphim and I are worried. Why haven't you been in touch? The name Seraphim struck her like a blast of cold wind. She stared at the message, trying to make sense of it. The next one read, I don't know what's happening. You vanished after the accident. We thought you were gone, but someone said they saw you. Eva's breath hitched. Leo had told her about the accident, the one that erased her memory, but he had never mentioned this. Message after message. Each line hit her like a blow. Seraphim keeps asking when you'll reach out. He refuses to believe you're gone. Eva clamped a hand over her mouth to stifle a gasp. Her eyes burned with unshed tears, her heart tightening as though something was crushing it. His eyes, his voice, his outstretched hand. Seraphim. The name echoed in her mind, stirring emotions she couldn't explain. The final message sent a shiver down her spine. After the accident, the car burned. but the messages kept reaching your phone. According to the notifications, the number is now unreachable. I never saw your body. That's why I refuse to believe you're dead. Eva gripped the phone, feeling her world collapse. Leo knew. He had been hiding something all along. These messages might be her only link to the truth, but she also understood, now more than ever, that she had to tread carefully. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Leo was coming. Eva's hands moved swiftly. She removed the SIM card, replaced her own, and tucked the other one back into her pocket just as the door creaked open. Leo's gaze landed on her. "Are you okay?" His tone was casual, but there was a flicker of suspicion in his eyes. Eva forced herself to remain calm. "Just tired." Leo hesitated, studying her for a moment longer than usual before nodding and stepping away. As soon as the door closed, Eva exhaled shakily. She lowered her gaze to the phone in her hand. What she had uncovered was only the beginning. She needed to figure out her next move, to learn the full truth without drawing Leo's attention. Outside, the setting sun bathed the house in hues of gold and amber. Shadows stretched along the walls, and silence settled over everything. But inside Eva, there was no calm, only chaos. Sitting at the edge of the bed, she clutched her diary as if it held the answers she sought. Every night, oblivion stole her thoughts, her discoveries, everything disappeared the moment she closed her eyes. But tonight, she knew too much. She opened the diary, staring at the blank page. For a moment, she considered writing it all down. But if she did, her secrets would be at risk. With sudden resolve, Eva slammed the diary shut and got to her feet. She needed to protect what she had learned. And, most importantly, Leo could never find out. Her hands trembled as she pulled a small piece of paper from the nightstand drawer. Then, with careful strokes, she began to write. Trembling, she began to write a short note. "You found the SIM card. A message from Dimitri. He mentioned Seraphim. Don't trust Leo." Eva folded the paper several times, making it as small as possible, and slipped it into the elastic band of her underwear, a temporary but secure hiding place where Leo was unlikely to check. But it wasn't enough. If she didn't remember any of this in the morning, one note wouldn't suffice. She needed a way to piece everything back together. Her gaze landed on the wardrobe. In the narrow gap between its back panel and the wall, she had a perfect hiding spot, one Leo would never think to search. Moving quickly, she pulled the wardrobe forward a few centimeters and retrieved another scrap of paper. This time, she wrote in detail, listing everything she knew. "You found a bag in the basement. Inside was a wallet with a photo of you and a boy, your son. His name is. You've seen him in pictures. In the lining of the bag, you discovered a SIM card with a message from Dimitri. He said you disappeared after the accident. Leo is hiding something. Don't trust him." She reread it multiple times, making sure she hadn't left anything out. Then she carefully folded the note, rolled it tightly, and pushed the wardrobe back into place, concealing the message in the gap behind it. With a deep breath, Eva closed her eyes. This was all she could do for now. She could only hope her efforts would help her tomorrow. By the time Leo entered the bedroom, she was already lying under the covers, feigning relaxation. "You seem tense today," he remarked, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Just tired," she replied curtly, turning away. Leo said nothing more. He switched off the light, and darkness filled the room. Eva lay motionless, listening to his steady breathing while the words from the messages echoed in her mind. "Seraphim keeps asking where you are." A past she couldn't remember. A life that had been stolen from her. But Eva made a promise to herself. Tomorrow, even if she forgot everything, these messages would lead her back to the truth. She awoke to a dense, gray fog clouding her mind. Everything around her felt unfamiliar, foreign. She scanned the room, searching for something, anything, that might bring her clarity. But nothing did. Her mind was blank. A sharp pang of loss struck her chest, though she didn't understand why. Then, she heard footsteps. Leo. His face radiated warmth and concern, but deep in her gut, something stirred, an instinct, a whisper that this concern was part of something larger, something hidden from her. "Good morning," he said softly, sitting on the edge of the bed and taking her hand in his. She looked at him, unsure how to respond. "You don't remember anything again, do you?" His voice was gentle, almost afraid. Eva slowly shook her head. "It's normal," he reassured her with a small smile. "You had a terrible accident, but we're getting through it. Your memory will return, it just takes time." He squeezed her hand a little tighter. "I love you, Eva. We're together, and that's what matters." She nodded, but his words felt hollow. There was no warmth in them, no familiarity, only emptiness. Later, after the morning routines were over and Leo had gone to his office, an inexplicable discomfort crept over her. As she adjusted her clothes, her fingers brushed against something firm beneath the elastic band of her underwear. Her heart skipped a beat. She rushed to the bathroom, locked the door, and carefully retrieved the object. A small, folded piece of paper. Eva unfolded it with trembling fingers, and as she read the words scrawled in her own handwriting, her heart plummeted. Her own handwriting covered the small piece of paper. You found a SIM card. A message from Dimitri. He mentioned Seraphim. You must not forget. Don't trust Leo. The word struck her like a bolt of lightning out of nowhere. A warning, one she had written to herself. But who was Seraphim? And why did she need to be wary of Leo? Eva pressed the note to her chest, struggling to recall any fragments of memory. But her mind remained a blank slate, save for one thing. The words "Don't trust Leo" echoed in her head like a relentless bell. She turned back to the bedroom, suddenly remembering the second note. With trembling hands, she carefully moved the closet aside, feeling along the narrow gap behind it. Her fingers brushed against a folded piece of paper. Slowly, she unfolded it and began to read. You found a bag in the basement. Inside was a wallet with a photo of you and the boy from your dreams. His name is Seraphim. You've seen him in pictures. He's your son. In the lining of the wallet was a SIM card. A message from Dimitri. He said you disappeared after the accident. Leo is hiding something. Don't trust him. The weight of her own words crashed over her like relentless waves. The boy from her dreams, Seraphim. Her son. Eva sank to the floor, clutching her head. Her heart pounded wildly, and her breathing grew shallow. The words of the note burned into her mind, leaving behind painful imprints. Who was she? Why had Leo hidden her son from her? And, most importantly, how could she remember what had happened to her? One thing, however, had become terrifyingly clear. Leo wasn't who he claimed to be. She had to be careful. She had to uncover the truth. That day, when Leo left for the store, Eva feigned a headache and stayed home. She watched from the window as his car disappeared around the corner. The weight of the morning's revelations bore down on her. She didn't have much time. Crossing the room, she reached for her jeans and carefully retrieved the SIM card from its hiding place in the pocket. Her fingers trembled slightly as she removed the current SIM from her phone and inserted the one she had found. A flood of messages began arriving, but Eva ignored them. Her focus was on the name that suddenly appeared in her contact list, Dimitri. She stared at it, as though willing herself to remember. Seraphim, your son. The words pounded in her head. If Dimitri had mentioned Seraphim, then he knew something. He knew what was wrong. Taking a deep breath, she made up her mind. Her finger hovered over the screen for a second before she pressed the call button. The ringing seemed endless, each tone growing louder in her ears. Then, finally, "Allo?" A voice. Tense. Uncertain. Eva swallowed. Dimitri. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. The air in the room seemed to thicken, closing in around her. Then, at last, his voice came through, shaken, almost fearful. Eva. Her heart clenched. Yes, it's me. Her own voice felt foreign to her. A ragged exhale on the other end of the line. Then, despair crept into his tone. You're alive. I thought, he hesitated. I thought you were gone. A chill ran down Eva's spine. Why would you say that? She asked, her pulse quickening. Eva, it's true. You're alive. His voice rose, filled with disbelief. I can't believe it. Where are you? Where have you been all this time? Eva tightened her grip on the phone. I don't know what you're talking about, she whispered. She spoke, her voice trembling. I'm having trouble remembering. Leo says I was in a car accident and lost my memory. On the other end of the line, Dimitri's breathing was heavy, as if he were struggling to process the situation. You need to run. You need to get out of there right now. Eva cut him off, her heart pounding in her chest. He's what? But before Dimitri could answer, the distant hum of an engine reached her ears, Leo's car pulling into the courtyard. Panic surged through her. She abruptly ended the call, her hands shaking as she quickly tucked the SIM card back into her pocket. Struggling to compose herself, she grabbed a book and opened it, feigning interest just as Leo stepped into the house, grocery bags in hand. Everything all right? He asked, eyeing her with mild suspicion. Of course, Eva replied with a weak smile, though inside, uncertainty gnawed at her. She had no idea what to do next. Each day stretched on endlessly, a slow and agonizing cycle. Every night, she meticulously wrote down notes, hiding them behind the closet, her only tether to reality. By morning, her memory would be gone again, but those brief, fragmented lines allowed her to trace back the truth, piece by piece. Leo, seemingly perfect, attentive, caring, was growing increasingly watchful. He sensed something. His concern felt less like affection and more like control. And with every passing day, Eva's unease deepened. Something in their life was terribly wrong. Then came the appointment with Dr. Romanova. Eva knew this was her chance. If anyone could help her escape this suffocating loop, it was the doctor. That morning, she struggled to contain her excitement. She retrieved her hidden notes, rereading every sentence, every word, ensuring she hadn't missed anything crucial. Her heart pounded wildly as she carefully tucked the papers into her bra, making sure Leo wouldn't notice. "Ready?" Leo's voice came from the doorway. Eva turned, forcing a composed smile. "Yes, of course." As usual, his tone was gentle, almost soothing. "This session will be good for you," he assured her. She remained silent, the tightness in her chest growing stronger as they arrived at Dr. Romanova's office. The room was warm and inviting, shelves lined with books, the soft glow of a lamp, and the faint aroma of fresh coffee. The doctor greeted her with a kind smile, motioning for her to sit. "Eva, how are you feeling?" Eva met her gaze, and for the first time, determination burned in her eyes. She took a deep breath, and the words spilled out, unstoppable. "You're my only hope." Dr. Romanova's brow furrowed in surprise, but she remained silent, waiting. With a trembling hand, Eva reached into her bra and pulled out the folded notes, carefully extending them to the doctor. "These are my notes. They're the only thing that helps me remember." Romanova hesitated before taking them, unfolding the pages with growing concern. With each line she read, her expression darkened. At one point, she even lifted a hand to her mouth, unable to hide her shock. Eva's voice wavered. "What does it mean?" The doctor placed the notes down carefully, then looked at Eva with a depth of sorrow and gravity. "Eva, the accident Leo told you about, it did happen. But it was 3 years ago." She hesitated, as if struggling to find the right words. "And all this time," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "Leo has been pretending to be your husband." Eva froze. She let out a shaky breath as Dr. Romanova gently took her hand, trying to calm her. "You're not married, Eva." "But why?" Eva's hands began to tremble. "That's what we need to find out," the doctor replied. "From what you're telling me, he may be trying to keep you under control. I wouldn't even rule out the possibility that he's putting something in your food or drink to manipulate your mind and prevent you from regaining your memory." Eva clutched at her collar, her breath hitching. All the doubts she had ignored for so long were now assembling into a terrifying reality. "What should I do?" she whispered, her voice laced with confusion. The doctor leaned in, her gaze filled with determination. "You need to get out of there, but you have to be careful. I'll help you. We'll come up with a plan." For the first time in a long while, Eva felt a spark of hope. This was only the beginning, but she was no longer alone. Dr. Romanova sat across from her, brows furrowed in deep concentration, rereading the notes over and over, as if searching for the missing piece that would make everything fall into place. When she finally finished, she let out a deep breath and looked at Eva. "You mentioned a SIM card," she said. Eva hesitated for a moment before reaching into her pocket and carefully pulling out a tiny piece of plastic. The doctor took the SIM card, staring at it in silence, as if trying to decipher the truth it might hold. Then, she looked up. "We need to check this," she said firmly. Eva nodded. Her heart pounded as the phone screen went dark, then flickered back to life. The doctor quickly navigated to the contact list. Just as Eva had said, only one number was saved, Dimitri. She looked at Eva, waiting for her consent. "Are you ready?" Eva swallowed hard, her throat dry with anticipation, and gave a small nod. The doctor pressed the call button, and the room fell into a tense silence. The dial tone rang on endlessly, each second stretching unbearably. Just as Eva began to fear no one would answer, a voice, male, urgent, and filled with emotion, came through the line. Dr. Romanova swiftly handed her the phone. Eva took it with trembling hands and pressed it to her ear. "Dimitri?" Her voice was barely above a whisper, but within it was a fragile glimmer of hope. On the other end, she heard an audible sigh of relief. His voice was both unfamiliar and strangely comforting, a warmth laced with sorrow. She opened her mouth to speak, but Dimitri cut in. "Tell me where you are. Send me your location or just give me the address." Eva froze, her eyes darting to Dr. Romanova. The doctor gave her a reassuring nod, as if confirming that Dimitri could be trusted. "I'm at Dr. Romanova's clinic," Eva said, giving him the address. A brief pause. Then, his voice came through, steady and resolute. I'm on my way. Stay there. And Eva, his tone darkened. Be careful. If Leo finds out you called me. Eva gripped the phone tightly. I'll be in a black Mercedes, Dimitri added. License plate 134. He hesitated, as if there was more he wanted to say. But no words came. And Eva understood. Okay, she whispered. The call ended, and Eva placed the phone on the table. Her hands were still trembling, but now, mingled with her fear, there was a flicker of hope. Dr. Romanova took her hand firmly. We have to act fast, she said with quiet determination. If Leo suspects anything, it could be dangerous. Eva nodded, feeling a surge of resolve. The truth was within reach, and she was ready to fight for it. After the call with Dimitri, Dr. Romanova sat in deep thought, her expression tense. The situation had escalated beyond the realm of conventional therapy. Leo, the man who had manipulated Eva for 3 years, was proving to be far more dangerous than they had anticipated. Taking a deep breath, she reached for the phone and dialed the police. This is Dr. Romanova from the clinic, she said, her voice steady yet urgent. I need immediate assistance. I have reason to believe my patient, Eva, is in danger and is being controlled by a man who claims to be her husband. We have evidence suggesting he may be involved in criminal activity. She relayed the details concisely, avoiding unnecessary emotion but ensuring the urgency of the matter was clear. The officer assured her that help was on the way. We need to be ready, she said, lowering the phone. I don't know how Leo will react if he realizes we've uncovered the truth. Eva nodded, her eyes filled with concern, but deep inside, a sense of determination burned. 15 minutes later, a car pulled up at the clinic's back entrance. Eva and Dr. Romanova peered out the window to confirm it was Dimitri. He stepped out cautiously, scanning his surroundings. Eva hesitated for a moment before stepping forward. In the dim light of the parking lot, she saw him, a tall man with a tense expression. His face, lined with exhaustion and shadowed by sadness, stirred something deep within her. A flicker of recognition. Something inside her shifted. Images surfaced, blurred memories of laughter, of warmth, of strong arms embracing her. And those eyes, piercing blue, glowing with a light she had long forgotten. Eva. Dimitri took a hesitant step forward, his voice thick with emotion, as if afraid she might vanish before his eyes. Eva froze. The name on his lips, the way he said it, it all felt hauntingly familiar. A knot tightened in her chest as her fragmented memories struggled to surface. It's you, he whispered, his voice laced with hope and disbelief. She nodded unconsciously, her heart telling her something her mind could not yet grasp. I don't remember anything, she admitted, her voice barely above a breath, heavy with frustration. But I feel like I know you. Dimitri's lips curved into a gentle, trembling smile, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. It's okay, Eva. I'm here. Everything's going to be okay now. Before he could say another word, a sharp sound echoed through the night. Eva turned, her heart pounding. In the clinic's parking lot, police officers had surrounded a recently parked car. Step out of the vehicle with your hands in the air, an officer commanded through a megaphone. Leo sat frozen, his face a mask of utter confusion. Slowly, he opened the car door and raised his hands in surrender. What is this? He demanded, his voice laced with irritation. This has to be some kind of mistake. You are under arrest for kidnapping and unlawful imprisonment, the officer stated firmly, moving toward him with handcuffs in hand. Leo frowned, his expression shifting from disbelief to resignation. He complied, though the shock remained etched on his face. From her hiding place, Eva watched in silence, her breath hitching. The nightmare was finally ending. From her hiding place near the back exit, Eva's heart pounded so fiercely that she feared everyone could hear it. Dimitri, standing beside her, gently placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, as if trying to steady her. Later that afternoon, the police conducted a thorough search of Leo's house. They combed through every room, every corner of the basement, a place that had once felt like a silent prison to Eva. Among the findings were her personal belongings, her jewelry, and her first diary. Eva spent the remainder of the day at the police station with Dimitri and Dr. Romanova. Her testimony set in motion a lengthy legal battle, requiring the prosecutor to meticulously gather all necessary evidence for trial. Hours later, a car pulled up in front of a cozy house, its warm light spilling softly through the windows. Eva gazed at it, her heart pounding so intensely that she could almost hear its rhythm echo around her. Are you ready? Dimitri asked. I don't know, she murmured, barely audible. He smiled, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Trust me, he said gently. There's someone inside who has been waiting to see you more than anything in the world. Eva inhaled deeply, clenching her hands so tightly that her nails dug into her palms. Then, slowly, she opened the car door and stepped out. Dimitri led her inside. The house smelled warm and inviting, as if it had absorbed years of love and life. Eva hesitated in the hallway, struggling to process the flood of emotions overwhelming her. Then, as if drawn by an unseen force, a little boy emerged from a nearby room. Eva froze. "Seraphim," she whispered. The child stopped abruptly, his face shifting from bewilderment to astonishment. He blinked rapidly, as though trying to ensure his eyes weren't deceiving him. "Mom?" His voice was barely above a whisper, as if afraid the word might dissolve into the air. Eva felt the weight of that single word pierce through her, striking like a bolt of lightning. She wanted to respond, but the lump in her throat held her captive. Seraphim took a tentative step forward, then another. His clear blue eyes glistened with unshed tears. You're really here?" His voice trembled like a delicate thread on the verge of snapping. Eva could only nod, her body reacting before her mind could process it. In that instant, Seraphim broke into a run, hurling himself into her arms with such force that she nearly lost her balance. "Mom," he sobbed, burying his face in her shoulder. Eva clung to him, her tears spilling freely. "It's you. It's really you," he kept whispering. And suddenly, as if a dam had burst, her memories came rushing back, his first steps, his laughter, his favorite toy. She remembered the way he had once stretched out his little arms toward her and said, "Mommy, I'm so sorry, baby," she choked out, holding him tighter than ever. "I'm so sorry I was gone, but I'm here now, and I'll never leave again. You promise?" he asked between sobs, refusing to let her go. Eva ran her fingers gently through his hair, her heart swelling with a love so fierce it nearly consumed her. A short distance away, Dimitri stood quietly, watching them. A wearied but contented smile touched his lips, and in his eyes, unshed tears shimmered. "Welcome home, Eva," he said softly. "We've been waiting for you for so long. And now, you're finally back." That moment marked the beginning of a new chapter. Everything that had been lost was slowly finding its way back. Her son was in her arms, and she would never allow anyone to take him from her again. 3 months had passed since Eva had returned home. Like a river gradually reclaiming its course after a violent storm, her memory had almost fully resurfaced. She could now recall, with striking clarity, the joyful years she had spent with Dimitri, Seraphim's first steps, and the countless precious moments they had shared. These memories anchored her to reality, giving her strength. As for Leo, he was no longer a looming shadow in her life. After months of legal proceedings, justice had prevailed. The court found him guilty of kidnapping and unlawful restraint, ensuring that he would never have the chance to harm her again. Leo had deliberately used powerful drugs to suppress Eva's memory and will. It was later revealed that he had witnessed the accident that left Eva unconscious. Rather than calling for help, he seized the opportunity to abduct her, exploiting her vulnerability. Investigators uncovered that, as a young man, Leo had harbored an unrequited love for Eva. However, her heart had always belonged to another, Dimitri, the man she had happily married. This unreciprocated love had festered into a dark obsession. The accident became his twisted chance to possess her, even if it meant resorting to crime. Eva gazed out the window of her new home. In the yard, Seraphim played joyfully, his laughter echoing through the air, as if washing away the remnants of past suffering. Nearby, Dimitri watched him with a warm smile. Eva inhaled deeply, feeling a newfound lightness, a happiness steadily returning to her life. Everything had changed. She knew who she was, who her true family was, and she vowed never to let anyone take that away from her again. She recalled Dimitri's words over the past weeks, "We made it through. And that's all that matters." Now, for the first time, she truly believed it. The past was behind them, and ahead lay a new chapter, one filled with love, warmth, and hope. A soft smile spread across her lips as a quiet yet profound joy settled within her. She was finally home, with the people she loved, and nothing could ever break that bond again. What would you do if you woke up every morning with no memory of your life, while those around you hid the truth? Could you trust your emotions if your memories failed you? If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another moving story. Share this video with your friends. Perhaps it will inspire someone to take action where it truly matters.